As the opponent reaches for a collar tie with his left arm, Nolf initiates his level change. By timing his level change with the opponent's reach, Nolf is able to bypass both the hand and the elbow on the opponent's left side. To perform the shot, Nolf brings his chest towards his lead knee, loads up his back foot, and brings the toes of his lead foot to the mat. After driving off his back foot, Nolf's lead left knee hits the mat as he reaches for the opponent's legs. Notice how Nolf has gotten underneath the opponent's left elbow, making it more difficult for his opponent to defend. To help bring his hips closer to his opponent's hips, Nolf loads up his left foot now. Watch how he pushes off this foot to bound forward and bring his right knee in between his opponent's legs. With his right knee between his opponent's legs, his hips directly underneath his opponent's hips, and his head up and back straight, Nolf is in strong positioning to finish the double leg takedown. Further cementing his strong positioning are his grips behind the opponent's knees, making it all but impossible for his opponent to sprawl. For a more powerful drive, Nolf builds up from his left knee to his left foot. To help with the finish, Nolf elevates the opponent's left foot off the mat as he continues to drive forward. Two concepts I'd like to discuss in the context of this clip are proactive versus passive setups and unforced errors, and the idea of reverse engineering to improve technique. Most wrestlers understand the importance of properly setting up a takedown entry. While a setup is usually proactive, as in you doing something to your opponent, they can also be passive. Sometimes your opponent will make an unforced error and put himself in vulnerable positioning. You must develop the ability to recognize this and attack immediately. The second concept is the idea of reverse engineering. Think about the ideal finishing position for a given technique. It doesn't matter which one. Now start at the end point and work your way back to the beginning of the sequence. By starting at the end of the sequence rather than the beginning, you may be able to recognize a new detail or two that makes your technique more efficient. Now let's take another look at this clip and see how these concepts fit in. So let's first focus on the opponent. So right here is the unforced error. So it can be subtle. Look at the opponent's feet as well. So the opponent's feet are not moving, he's flat-footed. And he's gonna reach up with his left elbow. And right here is where the setup is. So Nolf doesn't have to do anything as far as controlling the opponent's upper body. He simply recognizes that the opponent has put himself in this vulnerable position. He's opened up that space between his left elbow and his left rib cage. And this is what's gonna allow Nolf to get in positioning to finish the takedown. So again, this is subtle. Just reaches up here. As this is happening, Nolf is gonna recognize it immediately and level change. And you can see here, Nolf has beaten that left elbow, making it much harder for the opponent to defend. So you think about the lines of defense that are typically mentioned: the head, the hands, the hips. Worth noting too is the elbow. So if you beat someone's elbow, then chances are you've already beaten the head and the hands. And so at this point, all the opponent has left is his sprawl. And even the sprawl at this point, right here, is really not available due to Nolf's positioning. He's got his hands wrapped behind the knees. He's got his head up, back relatively straight. Opponent really has very little recourse at this point. So just one more time on that. All it takes is a little reach. Nolf recognizes it, and this recognition is intuitive. This is not a conscious thought. It's something that comes from experience. You could also turn this into a drill where you have your training partner reach up, expose the space, and you try to time that with your shot. Here. Now let's take another look at the clip with the second concept of reverse engineering in mind. What I mean by reverse engineering is focusing primarily on the ideal positioning you'll need to get to properly finish the takedown, and then adjusting, if necessary, the earlier steps in the technique. Said another way, your setup and entry are the means to your positional end, and we'll want to ensure that the means are as efficient as possible. Let's talk about how a double leg is traditionally performed and contrast that with how Nolf does it. So for a double leg, we'll want a staggered stance, meaning one leg in front, one leg behind. Generally, we'll want to push off the back leg, land on the lead knee, and reach for the legs with the arms. And so the way a double leg is conventionally taught is that you're going to want to get sufficient depth off of your shot for your lead knee to go between your opponent's legs here. Now, the problem with this approach is that you're not always going to be able to get that depth. You can see here, Nolf, how far apart his hips are from his opponent's hips. His left knee is not even close to being between his opponent's feet at this point. It's too far away. Nolf's going to add an extra step here. So he pushes off of his back foot, drops to his lead knee, and now he's going to push off of his left foot here to get his right knee close. Let's take a look at Nolf's positioning. He has his right knee in between his opponent's feet. His hips are close to his opponent's hips. Back is relatively straight. Head is up and to the left. This would be considered a strong finishing position for a double leg for a right leg lead. Now what's interesting is that Nolf leads with his left leg. And so when I used to watch Nolf double legs, I used to think he was taking what we would consider a lefty double leg. But it's really not the case. What he's doing is he's taking an extra step here. So he's pushing off of his back foot. He's driving to his left knee. But then watch the toes of his left foot. He's taking another big push here. So he drives forward again, and that gets his right knee directly between his opponent's feet and his hips in. So he's ending up in this strong position. So we want to have this positional orientation. This is the focus. What do we need to do working our way back to get to this position? And for Nolf, it's taking 2 steps instead of 1. So normally there'd be a drop to that lead knee and you'd want to have your hips in already, but it's not the case here. Nolf's going to take another big push off of the foot and he's in. So let's see that a few times, that motion. Here. See how he kind of glides his way in. Hips are in. Let's watch the clip twice more, once in slow motion and once in full speed. One other thing worth noting as you watch it again is how Nolf's right knee never hits the mat until it ends up directly between the opponent's feet. That's it for day 2. Thanks for watching.